Namaste. This video is going to be looking at chapter 2, verse 39 in the Bhagavad Gita. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at about 18 or 19 different translations of this verse. And this is a very well-known verse, very important verse, but a very hard to translate verse. And that's why I'm doing this video. Hopefully this video will help shed some light on at least what are the issues with translating this verse, what are the problems, what solutions did different translators have different translators come up with. I just published a translation of the Gita. I see my translation as a work in progress. That's partly why I'm doing these videos, is to continue to work on my translation, because I definitely do not see my translation as the end-all and be-all of translations. And there are many, many translations of the Gita in the English language. I think there's probably 400 or more by this point. That may be a lowball estimation of how many there are. So here's the verse in Sanskrit. eṣhā te bhihitā sānkhye buddhir yoge tvimāṁ śhṛiṇu buddhyā yukto yayā pārtha karma-bandhaṁ prahāsyasi. This is what I have. This which has been explained to you up until now, eṣhā te abhihitā, in the theory of Sankhya, is the wisdom of discernment, sānkhye buddhi. Now listen to it as applied to yoga, yoge tu-imāṁ śhṛiṇu. Yoked with this understanding, buddhyā, yukta, yayā, Arjuna, son of Pritha, partha is a nickname or an epithet of Arjuna, means son of Pritha. You shall be released prahāsyasi from the bondage of karma-bandhaṁ. Now, what is most problematic here is not the last part so much, not the last line, buddhyā, yukto, yayā, pārtha, karma-bandhaṁ, prahāsyasi, but the first line is really the most problematic. Not that the second line isn't as well, but the first really is the hardest to translate. I definitely don't think my translation is completely accurate. So this which has been explained to you up until now, it does not say now, it doesn't say up until, it says this, it says eṣhā. Eṣhā is, you could understand eṣhā as this up until now, or one word is hitherto, this which hitherto has been explained, abhihitā, to you, te, it's possible, right? This which has been explained, and then sānkhye buddhi, it's just two words in Sanskrit. How do you translate sānkhye buddhi? Buddhi, rather. First of all, buddhi, what is buddhi? It can be translated as insight, wisdom, intelligence, discernment, mental determination, mental discrimination, intellect, even sometimes enlightenment. I have wisdom of discernment. So that's one way of translating it. I see buddhi as the higher, right? I understand it as the higher mind, which is that part of the mind that can make discerning or discriminating choices. And what Krishna is really getting at is buddhi yoga here. Throughout the Gita, he talks about buddhi, 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 and jnana, jnana, jnana over and over again. So knowledge, jnana is knowledge, buddhi is something similar. It's like discern, the discerning mind, the discerning faculty. It could be a noun, and it could be, it's usually just a noun, wisdom, higher knowledge, discernment, enlightenment, like I said, all these different words that could be used for buddhi. The next part of this, of that first line of the first of this verse is yoge tu-imāṁ śhṛiṇu. So śhṛiṇu is listen, like hear now or listen. Tu is usually but, or indeed, however. However, listen to this in yoga as it applies to yoga, right? That makes sense, but it's still a little bit difficult. I think the most difficult is sānkhye buddhi. What does that mean? Sānkhye buddhi. This which has been explained to you is the wisdom in Sankhya. Maybe that's the best translation, something like that. This, what has been explained to you up until now, what I've been talking about for the last, how many verses? 30 verses up until this one, because it really starts in chapter 2, verse 11. Krishna begins to really get into this whole discourse about the metaphysics, right? And now all of a sudden he's bringing in yoga, and that's another issue to talk about. Is he doesn't even tell you that, he doesn't say to Arjuna from the very beginning that I'm going to tell you about Sankhya, but all of a sudden he says, well, what I've been talking about is Sankhya, and now I'm going to talk about it as it applies to yoga. Now the only thing is it's not so clear, the distinction here in this chapter, at least, between Sankhya and yoga, and that's another question, is what is the difference? Sankhya is this philosophical system. It's ancient, right? It's old. It is attributed to a sage named Kapila. It seems to be like the theory, and whereas yoga is more focused on the practical or the practice, putting the theory into practice. So it's possible to understand here that Krishna is saying, well, I've been talking very theoretically. I've been talking about this, the metaphysical principles here. I've been telling you, the wisdom of Sankhya, basically. But now let's apply this to yoga, and then he goes into this whole, the rest of the chapter, and actually the rest of the Gita really is talking about yoga, and that's why the Bhagavad Gita is really a yogic scripture. It's like an Upanishad that deals with yoga. There's 108, the magic number of Upanishads is like 108, which itself is a symbolic number, but there's only like 14 or so Upanishads that are specific to yoga. In another video that I just did, I tried to show that the Bhagavad Gita, it bears a lot of resemblance to the Katha Upanishad, but other Upanishads as well, but especially to the Katha Upanishad. It even shares at least 2 verses, more or less, with the Katha Upanishad. Not exactly, but very similar verses. So this is another yogic Upanishad. This Bhagavad Gita is really getting deep into what is yoga. And in this chapter, in chapter 2 is often understood to be a summary of the entire Gita. Like if you only had one chapter to read of the Gita, this would be the chapter. This chapter is understood to summarize the entire Gita. And in this chapter, Krishna gives 2 definitions of yoga. A little bit later after this, he says yoga is equanimity or evenness of mind, samatvam, and then he also says yoga karmasu kaushalam, which generally gets translated as yoga is skill in action. So it's, the understanding seems to be that yoga, as opposed to Sankhya, Sankhya is theoretical, whereas yoga is practical. So buddhi, could be understanding, could be wisdom of discernment, and then you have buddhyā yukta yayā. Yukta with this buddhi, yoked with this buddhyā, it basically means with this buddhi, yoked with this understanding, or yoked with this wisdom, or having, practicing this wisdom, or putting this wisdom into practice, you shall be released from the bondage of karma. That seems to be the gist of it, the meaning of it. Let's go on. So here's my translation one more time in English. This which has been explained to you up until now in the theory of Sankhya is the wisdom of discernment. Now listen to it as applied to yoga. Yoked with this understanding, Arjuna, son of Pritha, you shall be released from the bondage of karma. Now, I also have Sankhya and yoga with capitalized. Let's look at Winthrop Sargent. See what he has. Give me 1 second here. I'm just pulling it up. Winthrop Sargent has this, and then he has in parentheses, insight is wisdom, as declared in the theory of Sankhya. Now hear it as applied in arduous practice. So he defines yoga as arduous practice. He translates buddhi as wisdom. This insight is wisdom. So he has eṣhā, where are we? Eṣhā te abhihitā. This insight is as declared in the theory of Sankhya. Now hear it. So he translates eṣhā te abhihitā buddhi. Like this wisdom, or this insight, buddhi, insight, wisdom, has been declared in the theory of Sankhya. The only problem is he doesn't translate the te, which means you. Like it seems to be that Krishna is saying, I have said this to you, right? I have explained this to you. Now hear it as applied in arduous practice, which is yoga. He translates yoga as arduous practice. Does not say arduous though. That's an addition, and is that warranted? Yoked with this determination, Arjuna, so buddhyā, yukta, yayā, you shall rid yourself of the bondage of karma. So he translates buddhi there as determination, whereas the first time he translates it as insight, wisdom. I don't know if determination is the best word, for buddhi there. But anyway, that's his translation. All right. So you can look at all this. I'll have this in the description. You can look at it. We're going to move on. I'm not completely happy with his translation either. Shivananda. This which has been taught to thee is wisdom concerning Sankhya. Now listen to wisdom concerning yoga, endowed with which, O Arjuna, right? Endowed with which, or yoked with which, endowed with which, thou shalt cast off the bonds of action. Now listen to the wisdom concerning yoga. So he's translating wisdom for both, right? He's using buddhi for both. He's buddhi for Sankhya, buddhi for yoga. And he's translating buddhi as wisdom. It's good. Maybe that's better. Maybe that's better. He also capitalizes Sankhya and yoga. Sargent doesn't use the word yoga here, which might be problematic if you're, if Krishna is going to be talking about yoga throughout the rest of the Gita, you might think that you want to have the word yoga there, right? Even though he does have it in there, but he doesn't have it in the English, the final English translation, because he has, Winthrop Sargent did a great job of like breaking down each word, so you definitely can understand that it's talking about yoga, but he doesn't actually have it in the translation, which I think is problematic. Swami Nikalananda, what has been declared to you is the wisdom of Sankhya. Now listen to the wisdom of yoga, just like Shivananda, armed with which, so he translates yukta as armed with which. It's okay, it's a little bit, endowed with which, armed with which, it's kind of not exactly what it says. Yukta is more like yoked or joined with which, O son of Pritha, you will break through the bonds of karma. Shivananda had cast off the bonds of karma. Sargent has rid yourself of the bondage. I have, you shall be released from the bondage of karma. All right. Nikalananda does not capitalize yoga, whereas he does capitalize Sankhya. I think that's, that's a question for the translator, is do you capitalize yoga? Should yoga be capitalized? You would think Sankhya would be capitalized, right? Because Sankhya is the name of a system, but yoga is the name of a system too, so why wouldn't you capitalize the word yoga? Radhakrishnan, this is wisdom as revealed to you according to Sankhya. Now, hear now about this as employed in yoga. He adds some words. Not, he puts in parentheses the words as. He puts now. Now is not in there, right, in the Sanskrit. He has as employed in yoga. He puts that in brackets. Yoked by the wisdom faculty, buddhi. He has wisdom faculty. Right? He has yoked. He doesn't have armed or endowed. But he has yoked, which I think is a better translation of yukta. Yoked by the wisdom faculty, you will transcend the binding. And then he has, in brackets, effect of action, O son of Pritha. The binding effect, it seems to be, Sargent has the bondage of karma. I use the bondage of karma. Shivananda has the bonds of action. Nikalananda has the bonds of action. I think it's not plural though. It's a singular. So that's why, Radhakrishna has binding effect as opposed to bondage. Maybe that's the same difference, right? So Radhakrishnan is like the others, is basically saying, buddhi, this is wisdom as revealed to you in Samkhya, and now hear about this, meaning buddhi, as it applies or as it is employed in yoga. So, in other words, the this, when it says yoge tu-imāṁ śhṛiṇu, but hear this in yoga, about yoga as it applies to yoga, right? So it's referring back to the buddhi, buddhi. Okay, first time I'm using Georg Feuerstein. He did a very good translation. German scholar. This is wisdom revealed to you according to Sankhya. Hear now about this as employed in yoga. Yoked by this wisdom faculty. I don't know if maybe I didn't get his. I thought I did. I must not have. I'll have to come back to that one. I did download it. Let me see if I can get it real quickly here. Feuerstein. All right, let's see if I can pull it up real quickly. Schwerstein. Or maybe he used Radhakrishnan's for all we know. You know, but it's the exact same thing, so I don't think he did. Let's see. Where are we now? He's got a long preface, and this was was published by Shambhala Books. So I actually sent mine to Shambhala too. I don't think they're going to publish it because they published his, but maybe they're ready for a new one. Who knows? So here we go. His translation is Schwerstein. No. This is wisdom as revealed to you according to Sankhya. And hear now about this as employed in yoga. It's exact same as Radhakrishnan. Maybe I got Radhakrishnan's wrong. I'll have to find that too. Here it is. Let's see. All right. Okay, so I got Radhakrishnan's wrong. This is the wisdom of the Sankhya given to thee, O Partha. Arjuna, listen now to the wisdom of the yoga. If your intelligence accepts it, thou shalt cast away the bondage of works. I don't know where he got if your intelligence accepts it, but that's kind of an addition, I think. And works for karma, I'm not sure. I mean, it sounds kind of biblical as opposed to the bondage of action. A bondage of action, I think, depends how you understand what works, you know. It's maybe a little confusing, and it may be kind of confusing the biblical language with this language. So he uses wisdom for buddhi. He uses it twice here. Okay. All right, that's Radhakrishnan. All right. Eknath Eswaran, you have heard the intellectual explanation of Sankhya. Right, so now he's translating buddhi as the intellectual explanation. Now listen to the principles of yoga. Does not say the principles, right? That's his addition, you know, that's his explanatory language. By practicing these, you can break through the bonds of karma. Now he's translating yukta as practicing, by practicing, or yoked with this. That's how I would translate it, is yoked with this. But practice, you know, yukta does seem to have that connotation of practice, right? Discipline, yoking, joining together, disciplining, having some sort of discipline. So Eswaran is kind of explaining, you know, he's saying, what is the difference between Sankhya and yoga? Well, Sankhya is more intellectual, like the theory, right? He doesn't use the word theory, but he uses intellectual explanation. Now listen to the principles of yoga. Now he, unlike others, he does not use buddhi here for yoga. He's differentiating. He's not saying this, you know, now I've been talking about the wisdom of Sankhya, now I'm going to talk about the wisdom of yoga. He doesn't do that, right? He's doing something different than Shivananda and some of the others. Prabhupada. Let me just do one more thing here. Now Eswaran also has yoga not capitalized. He has yoga lowercase y. Sankhya, though, he does have a capital S, so that's interesting. All right, thus far, I have declared to you the analytical knowledge of Sankhya philosophy. Now listen to the knowledge of yoga. So he's using the word knowledge for buddhi, but he's adding some words, analytical knowledge of Sankhya. Now listen to the knowledge of yoga, whereby one works without fruit of result, which is not there. He added that. O son of Pritha, when you act by such intelligence, you can free yourself from the bondage of works. So he also uses the word works for karma, like Radhakrishnan. Eswaran does not translate karma. He just has the bonds of karma. which might be a good way to do it, right? But but I think it's important to translate karma as well. You can put karma in there, of course, but you might want to translate what that means, right? For the Westerner, but really for anyone who maybe doesn't even understand what karma is. We all think we know what karma is, but what is karma really? When you say to people, karma is action, when I first heard that, I was like, wow, karma just means action? I thought karma was like, do something good, you get something good, and you do something bad, you get something bad. But it just means action? We tend to think of it in terms of like, good and bad karma. That's how we tend to use that word. But it really is a more neutral word. It just means action. So, one thing we can say about Prabhupada is he does not capitalize either Sankhya or yoga, which is interesting. He uses analytical knowledge for buddhi, for Sankhya, but only just knowledge. He's translating buddhi still, but he's differentiating, Sankhya is analytical knowledge and yoga is just knowledge. And then he adds, whereby one works without fruit of result. That's not there, but that's explanatory language to help explain it. When you act by such intelligence, he's not really translating yukta here. You can free yourself from the bondage of works. All right. Not terrible, but most of these I think are falling short. Jeffrey Armstrong. This yoga of discernment that I am sharing with you is called Sankhya, O Arjuna. Now hear from me how through this buddhi yoga you can be freed from the binding effects of karma generated by action within matter. Binding effects. So he's using binding effects as well for bandha. He's not translating karma, but he is adding effects of karma generated by action within matter. Which I think is a little bit like if you're kind of a lay reader, some of that language is a little bit weird, maybe a little bit esoteric sounding. So I think it's important, there's something about creating a translation which is succinct and which is readily understandable to most people. I'm not saying this is not, but this yoga of discernment that I'm sharing with you is called Sankhya. Now that's, he's not exactly translating, but it's okay. Arjuna, now hear from me how through this buddhi yoga, now he's connecting Sankhya. He's not saying Sankhya and yoga are different really. But the problem with what he's saying is that Krishna seems to be all of a sudden saying, I have been talking about Sankhya, and now I'm going to tell you, now we're going to go into yoga, and we're really going to talk a lot about yoga now. Because Sankhya is not really talked about. He doesn't use Sankhya. He does mention Sankhya elsewhere in the Gita, but it's most of the time it's yoga, right? Yukta, yoga, yukta. Be a yogi, Arjuna. Yoga, yukto bhava, right? Yoga, yukto. Yeah. Yoke yourself to yoga, Arjuna. It doesn't say yoke yourself to Sankhya. Now, on the other hand, I like what Armstrong did because he is talking about buddhi yoga, right? Buddhi yoga in a way is Sankhya. So I like it and I don't like it at the same time. I think It's problematic, but I think he's onto something, and he's the first person that did that, at least with what I have. Swami Chinmayananda, this which has been taught to thee is wisdom concerning Sankhya. Now listen to the wisdom concerning yoga. It's like Shivananda and some others that we saw. Having known which, O Partha, you shall cast off the bonds of action. It doesn't say known, right? I mean, it says yukta, which is like, joined with which, or practicing which. It does not say known. But it's similar, Shivananda had endowed with which, Nikalananda had armed with which. It's like those translations, right? So bhagavad-gita.org, O Arjuna, I've explained to you this spiritual intelligence regarding the nature of the soul. Now listen to this science of actions without fruit of desires, by which the spiritual intelligence is endowed completely, releasing you from the bondage of reactions from actions. It's a little wordy. Definitely adding some things. Doesn't even mention the word Sankhya. Doesn't even mention the word yoga. It's problematic translation, I think. Right? Not the best translation. But, go on. Sri Purohit Swami, I've told thee the philosophy of knowledge with a capital K, right? He does not mention Sankhya. Now listen, and I will explain the philosophy of action, by means of which, O Arjuna, thou shalt break through the bondage of all action. Now, I think it's problematic. First of all, he capitalizes the K in knowledge, and he capitalizes the A in action. That's weird. That's just, I think that's like old school, Theosophical society, the old school way of translating. And he does not even bring in the word Sankhya, and he doesn't bring in the word yoga. So we're gonna go on, right? Mahadev Desai, this is from the Gita according to Gandhi. Thus have I set before you the attitude of knowledge, again with a capital K. Here now the attitude of action with a capital A. Resorting to this attitude, thou shalt cast off the bondage to action. It's almost as if Purohit Swami used Mahadev Desai's, or one of them used the others. I think Mahadev Desai probably came first. One of them was using the other one, right? That's too close to not think that one of them was borrowing from the other. But again, just for what I just said, it's problematic, right? I think that's definitely problematic to not use the word Sankhya and not use the word yoga there. And is Sankhya really knowledge, right? What does that mean? And to call yoga the attitude of action, he uses the word attitude, right? The attitude of knowledge, the attitude of action. Resorting to this attitude does not even have the word attitude. You could see why some of these translations are just not as good, right? They're not horrible, but they're just subpar, let's say, to put it more charitably. Paramakurna Devi, she actually has a decent one, a very good one, actually. I have explained, but she's also, it's wordy and it's difficult too. So I have explained this in parentheses, point to you by the, in parentheses, analytical method of examination called Sankhya. Now listen to this, in parentheses, concept as, in parentheses, observed from the perspective of, and then in parentheses, the practice of intelligence called buddhi yoga. O Partha, through this buddhi yoga, application of intelligence and correct understanding, you will be released from the bondage of karma, actions, and reactions. All right. Now, translating karma as actions and reactions is not bad, right? But this is wordy. This is Like if I were a reader, if I were a layperson trying to read this, I would be like turned off. I would, I would be like, this is too crazy. Too many parentheses, too many parenthetical. That's why eṣhā is good, because he does explain, right, in his own words, but he doesn't use all the parentheses. The parentheses, I think, can be a turnoff. It's like, you have all these parentheses in there, and you as the reader are kind of like, I mean, most people are not close readers to begin with. But what she's doing here, I think, is good. Like she's trying to explain it. Right? She's trying to explain what it is, and I think she gets close to that explanation in her translation. And she does translate. She does have Sankhya. She does have yoga. She capitalizes Sankhya and yoga. She uses the term buddhi yoga, which also Jeffrey Armstrong did, which is going to, Krishna is going to use that term later. In a sense, buddhi yoga is Sankhya yoga, right? That's what it is. Or you could say it's jnana yoga. And the term jnana yoga really isn't used in the Gita. Some people say, well, Krishna talks about jnana yoga in the Gita, but he doesn't really, per se. You could read that in, oh my gosh, that's a big guy. You could read that in, but anyway. Swami Gambhirananda, O Partha, this knowledge about the self has been imparted to you. However, listen to this, and then in parentheses, wisdom that is to be adopted in the yoga of karma, and through which wisdom you, involved as you are in action, will totally get rid of the bondage caused by actions. Doesn't say totally get rid of, unless you understand prahāsyasi as totally get rid of. Doesn't say this knowledge about the self, unless you understand buddhi to be knowledge about the self. However, listen to this, and then in parentheses, wisdom. So he translates one as knowledge, and then translates the other as wisdom, which I think is problematic. That is to be adopted in the yoga. And then and then in parentheses says the yoga of karma. Now that's good in the sense that it's talking about yoga in the sense of action, right? Of practical action. But it does not say yoga of karma. That's reading into it, and that's debatable. How you would define yoga here. Yoga might be more general, right? It might not be karma yoga. It might not be, because that tends to make it sound like it's talking about karma yoga throughout the rest of the Gita, and that's debatable, and it depends how you understand karma yoga. Anyway, going on, Jayadal Goyanka, Arjuna, this attitude of mind has been presented to you from the point of view of jnana yoga. So he's actually translating Sankhya as jnana yoga, which is interesting, right? But he doesn't say Sankhya, which is problematic. Now here the same is presented from the standpoint of karma yoga. Again, karma yoga, the yoga of selfless action. Now, but Krishna did not say that, right? He didn't use the term jnana, and he didn't use the term karma. Equipped with this attitude of mind, you will be able to throw off completely the shackles of karma. Again, throw off completely. Maybe prahāsyasi does have that connotation. Equipped with this attitude of mind. It's problematic in the sense that he doesn't mention the term Sankhya here, right? And that he's saying that the yoga which is being talked about is karma yoga. It does not say that. Google Translate. This is the intellect declared to thee in Sankhya, but hear this in yoga. It's very word for word, right? this is the intellect, so translating buddhi as intellect. Endowed with intelligence by which, O Arjuna, thou should be liberated from the bondage of action. So it translates buddhi as intellect and intelligence, and it also uses the word endowed, which is interesting because that was Shivananda's word for yukta, endowed with intelligence. Buddhyā, yukta, yayā, O Arjuna, thou shalt be it's funny that it uses thou, right? that's also funny. So the fact that it uses a thou in this translation means that it must have the Gita programmed into it, right? Otherwise, why would it use a thou? Thou shalt be liberated from the bondage of action. That's very weird, you know. That's why I still wouldn't follow Google Translate, but at least we looked at it. Thus far, I speak to thee as from the Sankhya, in quotations, unspiritually. Hear now the deeper teaching of the yoke, which holding understanding thou shalt burst thy karma-bandhaṁ, the bondage of wrought deeds. That's Sir Edwin Arnold from like 1888. It's funny that he says Sankhya is unspiritually. I've been talking to you until now, Arjuna, about this system, which is not very spiritual. But now hear the deeper message of yoga, right? Through which you will break through the bondage of wrought deeds, whatever that means, right? Now, one translator that was the first English translation, Charles Wilkins, from I think 1785. Here's his translation: This thy judgment is formed upon the speculative doctrines of the Sankhya Shastra. Hear what it is in the practical with which, being endued, not endowed, but endued, thou shalt forsake the bonds of action. So he has endowed too. It's just interesting because Google Translate has that. Shivananda has that for yukta here. He has the Sankhya Shastra. He does not translate yoga, except he says it's in the practical. It's not bad, actually, for being the first English translation. You know, he got a lot there. You know. Anyway, let's go back to the beginning. I think, let's read it one more time. eṣhā te bhihitā sānkhye buddhir yoge tvimāṁ śhṛiṇu buddhyā yukto yayā pārtha karma-bandhaṁ prahāsyasi. This which has been explained to you up until now, eṣhā te abhihitā. This which has been explained to you in the theory of Sankhya. It depends how you understand buddhi here, and how it relates, right? Buddhi, you could say this buddhi has been explained to you in Sankhya. Yoge tu-imāṁ śhṛiṇu. Listen to this in yoga. Yoked with this understanding, buddhyā yukta yayā, or endowed with this understanding, right? Equipped with this understanding, armed with this understanding, Arjuna, son of Pritha, you shall be released, prahāsyasi, or you shall be completely released, maybe that's what that word means, from the bondage of karma-bandha. All right, or the bondage of wrought works, whatever that means. This is a long video. All right, I hope this was helpful today. Anyway, I'm going to keep doing these videos. I'll put the link to my translation of the Gita as well, if you'd like to order it. Reach out to me if you would like a signed copy. It's tough being an author, I will say, in today's age, because who buys books these days anyway? And authors need to make a living just like everyone else. So anyway, thank you for listening. Would love to hear any comments, any thoughts you have. Hari Om Tat Sat.